what do you actually mean by the word brand?
Okay, good question. Let's begin with an example of this glass, right? When you look at the glass, it's made out of glass. You use it to drink water or any liquid. It's a commodity. Right? I'm drinking some water. But if I look at the bottom and I see Baccarat, crystal for the kings, there's a story. There is some intangible value that is communicated. The experience of drinking from a crystal glass, it's going to be different from drinking from a regular glass, and the price is going to be a lot different as well. And this is the advantage, that actually the disproportionate advantage that brands can bring to business. Instead of buying a glass for $5, a Baccarat crystal glass would be around $150. Not only because of the quality, but because of this intangible value that deeply connects with people, informing their own sense of status or identity. That's the value that we can bring by building brands.
Yeah, wow. So any brand should be focused on how they tell that story, because that's what's going to create that value as well.
Yes. Brands should definitely be focused on telling those stories in a way that is differentiated, so people can attribute that story to that brand and not to another brand. It's my story. It's coming from me. So this is all about your distinctiveness as well. But you also need to be relevant. If you're telling a story that doesn't really matter, it's not really adding value, it's not solving a problem, it's not making you feel in a certain special way, well then there isn't much to be said. And you go back to that state of being a commodity.
So there's a lot behind a lot of the television commercials we see, a lot of the magazine kind of advertising. It's not just putting your logo on there and saying what we do, it's actually really important to tell those stories.
Yeah, I mean, the logo is critical, it needs to be there. It's like the flag of a nation. That's how you identify the nation, from the flag. But there is a lot more after that. And usually these are, these things, like your rituals, your processes, your services, your products, the narrative that you bring through all these many touch points through media is what people are going to remember you for. So it's very important to go way above and beyond, just having a logo or just having a few colors, to really developing a narrative that is meaningful to people.
Are there some methods that P&G delegates today can use to assess their brands in market to ensure that they're consistent and effective in the way they tell their messages?
As a rule of thumb, for if you don't have the access or the time or the budgets to conduct these brand studies, a moniker to keep in mind is easy to mind, easy to find. If your brand is delivering a message, a story, a presence that is memorable, that's already half of the battle. Because every time that I feel the need to be in a certain category, for example, today is a Friday, it's a bit hot outside, I'm going to get thirsty very soon. Beer, that's what I think. But then I'm going to have, 500 choices of different beers to drink from. Which is the ones that I'm going to remember? Maybe 2, 3. Out of those 2, 3, which is the one that I'm going to go for? Memorability, being easy to mind, is critical in that sense. The second point is easy to find. So if I'm thinking about your beer brand and you're not on the shelf, you're not at the pub, you're not at the supermarket, I won't be able to drink from you, even though this is my conscious choice. So I'm going to opt to something else. Make sure you're easy to mind and easy to find.
So for our delegates today at the conference, what's the simplest way they can focus on to strengthen their brand? Now, keeping in mind the delegates today are from government agencies, there's some local startups in Papua New Guinea, but also some large global corporations. What advice do you have for each of these segments about strengthening their brand?
It all begins from the customer. And know thy customer should be the first commandment in marketing. At the moment that you know who you are dealing with, it's how you should be building your brand. It's how you should be adjusting your brand, improving your brand. How am I addressing their needs, their desires, and other things that may be relevant at different moments of these people's lives? Looking at their path to purchase, the consumer journey. Before being aware of the brand, at the moment that you are aware of the brand, when you have a relationship with the brand, and then after that. It's always about understanding how to make a presence and deliver a degree of utility or entertainment or something else that this story is going to be to become a vehicle that provides value. So, this is a way that it can happen as well.
I hear a lot about different strategies with brands. Some are focused on sales, so they're advertising products all the time, and then they also slip into just talking about brand in their advertising as well. How do they shuffle between the two? When should one be used over the other?
Yeah, I mean that's a very good question, and this has been the central debate for the past 10 years maybe. About 12 years or so ago, there was a paper that was written called "The Long and the Short of It," and that has become the Bible of modern marketing. And on that paper, they say that you have the long game to play and you have a short game to play. On the short game, we need to sell. We need to sell our products, we need to sell our services. And we sell by, telling people, this is how much it costs. This is where you can find it. And maybe if you buy 2, we can give a discount on the second one. This is, typical sales activation using marketing jargon, marketing language. You're using your communications to sell the product or the service. But what research has found is that 95% of your audiences, they are not in market when you want them to be. They are out of market. Right now, I'm sitting in this room with you. I'm not thinking about beer. I might think about beer in the next 2-3 hours. So I'm part of the 95% of people that are not considering that product as something that is going to fulfill a need. But if you're advertising your brand and an interesting story that somehow connects to me, connects to my reality, connects to my context, it's something that I'm going to remember. Because this is how our minds were hardwired to remember things, not to remember numbers or coordinates. So the price, like the opening hours of your pub, of your restaurant, I might forget. But if you tell me a story, I'm going to remember. And this is the advantage of promoting brands, doing brand-led advertising, because you will generate an emotional storyline that becomes a lot easier for me to remember, as opposed, to some very dry type of information, numbers, figures, and things like that.
So brands in Papua New Guinea, when they think of a vertical, when an audience or a consumer thinks of a vertical, they want their brand to be at top of mind within that, don't they? I guess when I think about a car, my first thought is a BMW. I don't own one. I've never driven one, never owned one, but I really want one. I think that's a long-term encoding from BMW to tell me that I need a BMW at one point. I think most brands should be able to work the same.
And that's an interesting point. I mean, is performance something that is important for you?
It is, yes.
Well, BMW is the ultimate driving machine. So there is a linkage there. By being the ultimate driving machine and by being positioned in this way and communicating in this way through advertising, they embedded that message.
It's in there,
in your mind. It's encoded there.
Yeah.
And when and because performance is important for you, you create the association with BMW, and BMW becomes top of mind.
Yeah. So delegates, again, in summary for brands today, they should be focused on brand storytelling. How can they get that brand story out to market? A lot of brands are now are starting to look at LinkedIn in Papua New Guinea. Corporates are really starting to take over LinkedIn now. They're even thinking about artificial intelligence. There's a lot of talk about those. How do the social platforms as well as artificial intelligence play into a brand and their advertising?
Okay, let's start with AI first, because it's the buzzword of the moment. In my view, AI right now, the best utilization for that is to remove those laborious, repetitive tasks. Anything that can be automated, anything that can free up my time from, monotonous tasks, where I can use my creativity, my critical thinking for other purposes, and not waste, those hours, just doing things that doesn't require much of me. That's where AI has an incredible role to play. And we see, a lot of that is, AI is being used for copywriting, which is a creative pursuit. But not every single copywriting, not every single, tagline is going to be a revolutionary one. Sometimes you just need some basic information to communicate something. And AI right now is doing quite well. Looking to the other part of the question about social platforms. So a few things first, The name says it all. It's a social media. It's between you and I. Brands shouldn't really have a role to play there because it's social. I mean, I'll take you to the pub to have a drink.
Yeah.
I'll take you to the restaurant to have dinner.
Sounds good.
We may go on a walk at the park and have a chat. But I will not take, my bag of Frito-Lays to the cinema with me on a date. Or I'm not going to take the Coca-Cola can to the restaurant pretending that I'm having a conversation. And this is why brands need to behave, in a very smart way. So listening to what consumers are saying, and that's why I said before, understanding your customer is the most important thing. When we look at culture overall, and social media is a big part of culture nowadays, there are usually three ways that brands can interact with culture. They can respond to conversations, messages, events that are happening, and it's an opportunity to give a point of view, to strengthen your positioning. This is what we are about, therefore we're going to be a part of this conversation. So responding is the first one. You can also create something. There is a conversation that may not be happening, but we believe it's important. Let's create. It could be about climate, it could be about equality, diversity, so many other things, and you have an angle that is special to you, it's particular to your brand, why not create something like that? Last but not least, another way that you can engage with culture is by attaching your brand to something. You're not really responding, you're not really giving a point of view, you're not really creating something new, but let's say you're sponsoring something. For example, the P&G innovation company that you guys are running, it's all about innovation, it's about developing a nation, promoting trade. Brands that are attaching themselves to this conference, brands that are sponsoring this conference, they will, because of that, be perceived as more innovative, as very commercial, as astute. So there is, these are ways that brands can engage with consumers inside social media platforms or even outside.